It's me, Dark Fox 8. Come into my mouth and listen to me talk about all the brand new Death Stranding stuff. Well, actually, not all the new stuff. I'm only really gonna be talking about gameplay. I'm definitely excited about the story, but I mostly just want to wait until the game comes out to experience that story and kind of just like see it unfurl before me. With the gameplay, I'm a lot more interested in theorizing what's it gonna be like, what the gameplay loops are gonna be. And because of this, I created this video where I kind of break down the gameplay, and I specifically kind of divide it into sections, two main sections. One of them is going to be mechanics, meaning what are the buttons you're going to be pressing to execute what commands and what systems you're going to be working with. And the other section I'm going to be talking about is gameplay, which is like the scenario, the game design, like what are the developers making you do and how are they making you utilize the mechanics to like create what's going to be the final game experience. So let's just get started with the first one, mechanics. I'm gonna list off what I believe are gonna be the main mechanics you use in the game. I could be wrong. Keep in mind, I didn't put a disclaimer in the beginning of this video, but I'm putting it now. Like, this is just me going off the cuff, looking at these trailers, theorizing what could be happening. I could be completely wrong, and that's fine. I'm not claiming I'm right. I just think that this is where the developers are going with this stuff. First on the list is momentum-based movement. What this means is that the game isn't going to allow you to just like hit the analog stick left and right and just teleport left and right like you can in some action games. There's going to be a lot of animation priority on it. I think they're still going to make the kind of controls pretty responsive. If you take Metal Gear Solid 5 for an example, it also had some momentum-based movement, but overall it was pretty responsive game. It was easy to control, and I think they're going to follow suit with that here, but with even more emphasis on the momentum, because momentum and movement is going to be a big part of you carrying your packages. This is like a package carrying game. You're delivering these packages or safeguarding these packages, and depending on how you move, you can put yourself at more risk at losing or dropping these packages. You're seeing here footage from the newest trailer where it kind of includes a chase sequence that's clearly gameplay, because you could tell because of the way the animation kind of is janky at times. You see him zigzagging a little bit, but he takes wide turns. He doesn't do like a lot of sharp turns like you can in some action games, and that's part of like the deal. There is a sharp movement here coming up because they give you a juke mechanic where you can juke the guys like that and fucking break their ankle so hard they die on the spot. They're dead. And this is kind of obvious. It kind of goes without saying, but I still wanted to bring it up. The fact that you can go back and pick up packages that get knocked off of you, it's a very big deal. That's going to be the whole gameplay loop in a nutshell, in my opinion. You're going to be losing packages, risk versus reward, having to judge whether it's worth the risk to go back and pick it back up, potentially lose more packages. Are you going to cut your losses, or are you going to go in and try and do like a perfect playthrough? I think just showing him pick that package up, it's a big deal, and I love where it's going with this. Something else shown in the past that is demonstrative of the gameplay momentum that I was talking about is him balancing on this ladder. If you look at the packages, you can see that they're kind of shaking up top his backpack. I don't think this is accomplished by like some sort of mini game or some sort of like balancing Tony Hawk grinding on the rails kind of mini game. I think this is purely like your thumbstick movement. If you're going too fast, or if you stop your movement too abruptly, then those packages are going to shake too much, and the odds of them falling off and falling down that cliff are going to be higher. So it's just going to behoove you to just take it slow. If you're not being chased by any bad guys, you just take it slow and you'll be good. If you're impatient, then you're just going to like wreck yourself. It's all going to be just how you decide to move with the left analog stick. Another mechanic that's going to be key to the gameplay, I feel, is going to be player character site-based scavenging, meaning there's going to be stuff around the environment that you can see and then mark and then pick up if you need it, and that's going to be a specific mechanic you use to look around the environment with no Maritas. We've seen it in a couple of the trailers, and this is one of the first times I think you see it when you're going to like this derelict mall area. Norman Reedus shifts his weight to the right and then to the left. I think that's going to be key in exploring the environment, because there's going to be a movement-based system. It'll be way too annoying for you to like go into every nook and cranny and try and hump the walls and try and find secrets that way. So instead of making you do that and deal with kind of like the momentum based movement, they're just going to give you this whole this scan mechanic. You scan left, scan right. If there's anything there of interest, you're going to get it. So as long as you're actively looking for stuff, you shouldn't miss anything. You shouldn't have to like hump the area or find nooks and crannies and just stick yourself in weird locations to like find everything in an environment. This footage here shows a similar shifting of Norman Reedus' way from left to right, but he clearly isn't really scanning the environment. His kind of a head stays looking forward. So I just think that it's possible that that's just an idle animation or something you have to do with your packages so that you can comfortably like carry them. That footage right there might debunk my whole theory of looking left or right, but I don't think it does, because I will show you now footage of what looks like something marked in the background. During the whole action sequence from the latest trailers, there's a rock in the background that's just kind of shimmering and shining, and there's no explanation for why that is. It doesn't seem to be related at all with the combat. There's nothing shining near Norman Reedus. There's nothing like pointing you to think that maybe this is a context sensitive action point where maybe Norman Reedus can smash his head against that rock. It's way too far away, and none of the nearer rocks are doing anything similar to that. So I think in the gameplay earlier, Norman Reedus had like shifted his way and looked in that direction, and he marked that rock because it's a potential resource point or point of interest, or maybe there's water in that rock. You need some water in your face. And now we get to a very important one that's kind of key to the whole identity of Death Stranding, and that is the package inventory management system. We showed a little bit about it in the movement based system where he picked up that package. Well, what you carry on your back is everything that's on your inventory system, and also what you carry on your side and on your shoulders and all that. But everything is like tactile and like unique, meaning that it can fall off, you can drop it, you can move it around, you can decide where to put it best. And the inventory system shown in the last trailer shows a circular menu that's not just for like easy sorting. It actually represents the parts of your body that's holding cargo and what you can access and what you can do. If we freeze frame the menu and we zoom into the section of the menu that's highlighted, we can see that it says back and this little diagram of a stick figure guy and a big backpack on his back. That is because that section of the circular menu represents what's on his backpack and what he can access there. And like I said, this is also represented in-game in the actual like model in the polygons. As you see here, the ladder is tucked away in his backpack, all folded up, ready to be extended. And once he actually chooses it in the menu, it kind of pops out and appears in a place that he could reach it. I think I like the philosophy of the gameplay system and the inventory system, the way how everything appears physically on the backpack, and there's kind of a certain amount of realistic integrity in the way how everything fits together. But at the same time, when you choose something, when you want to equip something, you don't go to like this large arduous animation of Norman Reedus like getting down on one knee, taking out the backpack, looking at what he wants to get, unstrapping the thing he wants to get, taking out the thing he wants to get, restrapping everything together, and then extending the ladder. That would be like far too arduous and not really that fun. So I like the way they're handling it. They're clearly paying attention to the cargo and to the inventory system, and trying to make it realistic to a certain extent, where this is how Norman Reedus would have to deal with these cargoes if he was actually carrying this stuff. But when it comes time to actually equip stuff and do gameplay stuff, you know, they make it gamey and straightforward, which I think is a smart decision. This is another view of the circular inventory system representing certain parts of your cargo, and this bottom part represents the tool rack. I don't know if this is going to be customizable, meaning that this bottom part could be the tool rack, or it could just be your pocket or something like that. There are a lot of parts on Norman Reedus that seem to have packages at some points, but non-packages at other points. So all that stuff is obviously up in the air. I have no clue how the logistics of this are going to work, but in general, it's clear that the circular menu represents all around Norman Reedus' body. And as before, anything represented in the menu is also represented on Norman Reedus' body. As I said, that's like one of the big deals of this game, is the management of the cargo and what's it like to carry this stuff around. Next is resource management survival mechanics, kind of like Rust or various PC games where you gotta drink water or eat. I think there's gonna be a slight element to that in this game. It probably won't be too heavy in it, just because like I'm just gonna guess that Kojima wants to further or distance himself from Metal Gear Survive, and other games like that. And I think Kojima likes to look at trends at the in the game industry, and he likes to sometimes do things that are kind of popular or maybe avoid things that aren't popular. And I think he might sense that like survival games are on a decline. So if he does survival mechanics, I think he's just gonna do them for the flavor and just for like added mood to the game. And if you ask why I think there's gonna be survival mechanics, one is because first of all I think it just fits the mood that you're a courier or a delivery man taking these packages through like a lot of hostile territory, a lot of territory that like isn't developed or is maybe destroyed. So like that's part of the whole deal, is that you gotta make sure you're prepared. You got water, you got food, rations, whatever. And there's a couple of clips in the trailers that show him like drinking water, and it shows him carrying multiple shoes and stuff like that. I don't know if there's gonna be a shoe resource, like the more you walk, the more you use up your shoes or anything like that. But I think the gameplay will put light on this, at least to a certain extent. Something else I've seen people point out is this P option in the menu. I didn't kind of see this myself, and I still am not sure what it looks like. I guess there might be a P icon in the menu, but that totally makes sense to me. You know, like you gotta take care of your cargo, but you also have to take care of yourself, and that might be one of the like biggest messages of this game. At least a message that might come out from the gameplay. And water resources and food resources might be what makes the most sense for you to be actually scavenging for. You know, I mentioned the whole look left, look right system to find stuff in the environment. I don't know why you'd be finding too many packages and stuff like that in the environment, or even bullets. I think most of that stuff you're gonna get from like obvious places, but food and rations and water resources, that stuff is gonna be like hidden around in the environment, and that's where the main scavenging mechanic is coming from. Next is combat. It took us a while to get here, but these are kind of set up in order of what I feel might be what the game is dictating as important or not important. Combat in this game, you know, it's going to be brawling, punching, and stuff like that. It's also going to be like shooting. We've seen both of these things. Newest trailer showed us some good combat or like hand-to-hand stuff, but it's very different from Metal Gears of the past because there's no CQC, obviously. He's just brawling. Most interesting thing to come out of it as far as the mechanics are, he punches him like this, turns him around, and then hits him on the back side and knocks off his package that he had on the back. He picks it up immediately and then hits this guy, and this guy immediately drops the package he has. I think that's important to like note that like where you hit them is gonna matter whether you drop their packages or not. I would also be interested to know if you have options in the combat. We saw that you can have your stuff knocked off as well. I wonder if you're gonna have some sort of block mechanic where you hunker down and hold on to your backpack, and that like if you know you're gonna get hit, you could use that block mechanic to hold on, take the damage to your body, but save the packages from falling down and avoid the hassle of having to go pick it up. I think something like that might fit this game. You risk versus reward, decide what you're gonna defend most, your body or your packages. The Hades section of the trailer shows up some third-person shooting gameplay. It looks, you know, very much like you'd expect coming off of Metal Gear Solid 5, or really just like any modern action game. But interestingly enough, the person he's fighting is like one of those skull soldiers we've seen before, and you even see Norman Reedus' character shoot off the skull and doesn't quite die yet. So a lot of conventional wisdom might not work when you're trying to dispatch these kind of enemies. They might be immortal to a certain extent. I'm excited to see how that plays out. And finally, we have stealth. Obviously, stealth and combat, those can be kind of one and the same. You know, like those lines get blurred if you're using like lethal methods to like stealth through an environment, or if you just like go guns blazing and then hide back in. That's the thing that Metal Gear usually didn't get enough credit for, is that like stealth and action, they weren't always as segregated as some people would have suggested. But you definitely get a lot of like pure stealth mechanics in this trailers. Before the whole chase and combat sequence, it shows Norman Reedus' character running through the open field, and then some sort of scan sweeps across the field. When it hits Norman, it pings his like big golden briefcase he has on his back, and you can see that like it kind of leaves a marker, almost like a last known position stealth marker. I don't know if that's something that he activated to throw them off his trail, or if that's just the game letting you know that that's where you got pinged and that's where they're gonna come find you. It's interesting to think about the possibilities as to why that got pinged. That specific package is obviously the one that got pinged and not the black one on the back or the one on his right waist. I wonder if certain packages are going to carry more risk in more areas, if certain factions know what kind of things to look for and what kind of things to scan for. Or maybe your packages carry a tracker system for your own company to track you, but these other factions can hack the signal and find you that way too. So it's up to you whether to avoid these areas or to kind of like try and stealth through them as quickly as possible. I would love to have those options when you're deciding to like map out your journey through these like hostile lands, if you're going to take the safe route, or it's entirely possible that it's a completely scripted section and you have to come to this area with this package. But either way, I think it's an interesting wrinkle where like just looking at it visually, like you can see it get pinged and it's very well like choreographed just visually. Like just watching the trailer, you can kind of figure out the gameplay cycle. It's pretty cool. Once the bad guys show up, you can see Norman Reedus hiding in the grass. It's kind of fun to note that this is the same game engine in which they made Horizon Zero Dawn. So this whole hiding the grass system, it's probably lifted directly off of that with very little modifications. It kind of even looks very similar. But for some reason, the player character gets caught in this situation. It seemed like he was safe there, but probably just for dramatic effect and to like show off the whole systems. Kind of sprints out of there in front of them and just gets some dumb stuff caught. But it is really cool to see just like those very basic straightforward stealth systems, very recognizable, very like, you know, a lot of modern games have these kind of systems. Somewhat less recognizable is this whole sequence in like this Hades world. I'm calling it Hades just because the trailer alludes that this might be called Hades, if you were to take the little title cards as literal. This kind of seems like it might be a stealth section to me, or it just might be an ambiance story kind of sequence where you're supposed to walk around and be in awe. But I think there is gameplay involved in here because you do see other parts of the trailer where he is third person shooting some of these skull guys. So I imagine this is in part a stealth section as well. And finally, you have the completely non-conventional stealth sections. This is stealth sections dealing with the BTs, the little floating scary ghost thingies, and these seem to have like a whole mechanic based around movement potentially and breathing. It's not just going to be pure sight. I think it's just going to be based on proximity and if you're moving near these BTs. One thing I've seen people point out is that the BT's kind of signatures or their silhouettes, they are invisible when he's in full stride where he's just walking, and when he stops they become visible again. I think that might be onto something because here you could see the robot arm pointing at the nearest BTs, and at that point the gameplay would revolve with him stopping, making sure that they aren't too close. He sees them, they're right there. He thinks that's pretty good distance, so he keeps on going after that. Here you see him cup his mouth, and I think this is gonna be the hold your breath mechanic. In the trailer, it has showed that like they are attracted to breathing or maybe more signs of life. So if you kind of don't breathe, they don't come near you, or they're less likely to come near you. They'll just kind of go to the next thing. But if you notice the robot arm started pointing ahead of him, and the player character didn't stop to see what was ahead. They kept on walking until it was too late because this gameplay sequence is failed in the trailer. They had ample time to kind of stop and like reappear the silhouette to see how close it was. Instead, like the player character just walks right into it. You know, again, for dramatic effect, they want to show off what it looks like when you fail. But yeah, that's probably too close for comfort. He's been holding like his breath this whole time. He can't hold it anymore, so he just tries to bail and he gets worked over. So the newest trailer has shown us that this sequence might not be game over or might not be a complete fail state. They might drag them across the floor to kind of go into another gameplay sequence, but in this case, it seemed to be a fail state. This clip is very similar from the other one I showed you, but it seems to be more polished. The mechanics seems to be a lot more distinct. Maybe just because the UI is more turned on. You can see the robot arm has like a pinging system where it's a lot easier to spot them even at a distance. But you could tell that like as he started moving, they dissipated. This is a cool new wrinkle though. It shows you your footsteps, and I think there's a pretty good reason for that. I think when he gets caught here, they go directly towards his footsteps. In this freeze frame right here, you can see how the handprints chase after the footsteps more than chase after Norman himself. Maybe it's just my opinion, but if the handprints were going directly towards Norman, it would be a far like more gradual curve. But right there, those handprints turn at a 90-degree angle, I feel like, because they go direct to the footprint, and the moment they hit the footprints, then they start following the footprints. I think that might be an interesting wrinkle and an extra layer to this gameplay, because if your footprints are being tracked, and if you have the opportunity to see where your footprints are, you might be encouraged to double back and use your same paths or something like that, just to give the monsters less options on which ways they can travel. That might be a cool thing. Okay, after 20 minutes, I completed the first part of the video. I don't think the second part is going to take as long, because the second part is a lot more self-explanatory. It's morely just talking about the philosophy. But before I go on, I want to just drop in another disclaimer that this is just my opinions, and this is stuff that I think would be really cool and really interesting, and I think this kind of ties into Kojima's whole like talk about, oh, this is a different kind of action game. It's not the same kind of stuff you do before. He has said there's an emphasis on not fighting and having a large part of the gameplay be like scavenging, managing your packages, and thinking about the risk versus reward. I think that fits into the stuff he's been saying. So again, this is just where my mind's at, and I'm personally really excited about what I just spelled out. But I'm also open-minded. If the game comes out and it's nothing like I just talked about, and it's completely different, I was completely wrong, then fair enough. I'm still going to play the game and judge it by its own merits. And I'm very excited to see what the game will actually be. It's coming out pretty soon. Now we switch gears to gameplay and scenario. If you don't really understand what I mean by that, the gameplay and the scenario is basically the script that the director writes for the game. It's not enough for these type of games to have mechanics. They also need to have a scenario where certain things are going to happen at certain times, and that's how the story unfurls. But more importantly, that's also how the gameplay unfurls. It's what you're going to be doing throughout the game. If you want a good example, it would probably be like Metal Gear Solid 2. The mechanics in Metal Gear Solid 2 would be like using the coolant spray to deactivate the C4. But that's not like all there is to the game, right? There's cutscenes in the middle of all of that. You get interrupted by Fat Man at the end. That's the scenario, like what's happening. And the mechanics is just you using the coolant spray to like deactivate the C4. I also want to make clear that I'm not a game developer. I'm just a layman. I'm a consumer. I'm part of the audience. So my grasp on some of these ideas might be lacking, or I might have some misinterpretations, but what I'm talking about it is from my own internal logic of what I think this game is going to be and how I think this game is going to play out. And within that, I think it's okay for me to use these terms, even though I'm not a game developer and I'm not pretending to be some sort of gameplay analyst. I would leave that to the actual game developers doing postmortems at like keynotes and stuff at like GDC. That isn't what I'm trying to do or pretending to do. I'm just theorizing of what this game is probably going to play like. First scenario I can think of is going to be just an open exploration or a simple scenario. The story might set up that you have to deliver something from point A to point B, and that's all just going to be going on as far as the story is concerned. And you're just going to go about your way and do it how you want to do it. This sequence might appear after the beginning of the game, after the game tutorializes you how to use the basic mechanics and what the game is going to be doing for you. I imagine eventually it just opens it up and lets you have kind of like a section that lets you breathe and it won't nag you about it. At least I'm hoping there's going to be a section like that in the game. Most linear games have a section like that where you get through the cutscenes and then it just lets you have at it. And, eventually the scenario is going to interrupt you again, but I hope to have a section like that as well. Next is emergent risk or player choice scenarios. These are sections that probably interrupt your open exploration or the simple scenario. These are sections of either sneaking sections or action sections that are going to appear, maybe not randomly, but maybe not heavily scripted. You could come across them, you could avoid them, and it's going to be up to you how to deal with them. This section appears in one of the trailers where Norman walks up to the cliff edge, overlooking a base, the base probably belonging to the Homo Demons, the separatist group that's being led by Troy Baker's character. I think his name was Higgs. Um, and I suspect there's going to be a lot of areas like this where you could engage and get rid of them, or you could just explore around, and that's probably a really good example, the best example of like emergent risk. And sometimes you won't have much of a choice with dealing with them. Sometimes they might come after you, but you could deal, or you could just decide to run away or to defeat them. That's the whole player choice thing that's like cool about a lot of Kojima games. You know, I also suspect there might be some emergent risk scenarios dealing with the BTs, the whole ghostly apparition stuff. That might not be the case. I might be wrong about that. These might be purely scripted story sections, but I would be kind of disappointed if that was the case. I would kind of want to have to deal with the BTs as an environmental risk that I might happen across while I'm just exploring. You know, I feel like that's more dynamic, more interesting, and also more Metal Gear. It's more Kojima-ish to just have that be a living, breathing part of the world. Next, I got mission interrupted or completely scripted scenarios. These are just like forced cutscenes, forced gameplay scenarios. The best example that we've seen on that is probably like that trailer where it shows Troy Baker's character spawn like a boss fight in front of Norman Reedus. He just shows up and he's literally like, "Oh, you got through that, eh? How about this? Fuck off." I think it's safe to say that we're gonna see a lot of completely scripted scenarios, mostly just because I feel like this has had a really accelerated development time for Hideo Kojima. He's putting this game out pretty quick compared to like MGSV, and again, this is just a layman's understanding, but the more open your game is, the more you have to test it, and the more you have to think of the different possibilities that the players can do. While the more scripted, they could probably focus on the scenes and scenarios and not have to worry about all like the plethora of possibilities. This doesn't sadden me or worry me. Coming off Metal Gear Solid 5, I really feel like I missed a classic Kojima game. I think Metal Gear Solid 5 is a really, really good game. It's probably my favorite game to come out for this generation so far, with a few kind of contenders. But I think just a really tight scenario where you're kind of taken from here to there, and the boss fights are really well crafted. I'm hoping they return to that at least a little bit. Number 4 on the docket is resource management or the meta game. This is similar to building your mother base in Metal Gear Solid 5 or in Peace Walker. I think there will be an overarching resource system where stuff you're collecting or the package you're delivering is going to give you currency and stuff, and depending on how well you're playing the game, you can invest that into upgrades or other items, or maybe stuff that just kind of gives you a little bit of a security blanket, like a get out of jail free card. If you lose too many packages, you could like re-roll or retry and do like a section again. If you go onto the Death Stranding website, there's like this feature sheet that kind of breaks down these 4 pillars of the game, and on the 4th one it says assist other players, help other travelers without ever crossing paths via asynchronous online gameplay, send supplies, share safe houses, and walk in the footsteps of fellow couriers to reunite civilization. I think that safe houses thing, it's kind of like a big deal. I think that the when you're like delivering packages, there's going to be a lot of hostility in the environment. You won't never feel completely safe. Bad guys can roll up on you, BTs can spawn. So I think like safe houses are almost going to feel like a save room in a Resident Evil game, where you're like, okay, finally I'm in this area and I'm good. I'm not going to get fucked with like these these assholes with electric spears or fucking ghost babies. Like, I'm good here. And I think that's going to be a large part of this metagame. You know, you go in there, you kind of bank what you have, you're safe for a certain amount, and then you go back out and risk more. How much more are you going to risk? How much more are you going to try and gather before you kind of like cash in your chips? 5th, final, and what I think might be the biggest deal of all is pattern breaking slash meta puzzle. This is the very off the wall, unique stuff that Hideo Kojima does. This can include everything from switching the controllers to port 2 so that Psychomantis can't read your mind. This could be all the stuff with the end, all the ways you can defeat the end in Metal Gear Solid 3, shutting off your console for 2 weeks, shooting them like in a brief window after a cutscene, all the very unique stuff that kind of break the pattern of not just with video games in general, but specifically the video game you're playing at the moment. The reason we call it, or I call it, pattern breaking is because the game developers have tried to make you comfortable with a certain scenario, a way the game plays, a flow, a difficulty setting, certain mechanics, and then the breaking of the pattern, like switching the core controller ports, is something that you never really done before. There's nothing like that before and after you do it. Metal Gear Solid 5 has a really good one, in my opinion. I think this one was kind of controversial, but there's that whole outbreak and quarantine section in Metal Gear Solid 5 where all the gameplay happens within the menus of your mother base management. I thought that was genius because most of the gameplay happens, most of the mechanical gameplay happens while you're out in the field running, shooting, doing stealth stuff. But then you have a major part of the game where all the gameplay is happening in the menus, all the stuff you kind of take for granted, all the stuff you do kind of like half paying attention because you want to focus on the stealth and stuff. Like that was really well done. That's one of my favorite parts of the game, and I wish the game had more unique stuff like that. That's one of my least favorite things about Metal Gear Solid 5 is that they set up like a really strong foundation, and then they just kind of flew with it. They kind of stayed the trajectory with that, and they did very little like twists and turns with it, and that was one of my favorite ones. So, talking about Death Stranding, what can be a pattern breaking? What can be a meta puzzle in Death Stranding? I think the odds of there being some sort of twist with the BTs or the beach things are very big. It just seems very Kojima to me for like, oh, these seem like monsters and apparitions, but then you find out they're just innocent babies from a different dimension. So like, I really expect some sort of pattern breaking with that where maybe there's a section that's like unbeatable unless you do something counterintuitive like walk straight into the BTs or give the BTs healing items, and then suddenly they turn into hot babes, and turns out the BTs were hot babes all along. They just wanted to be your friends. I see a lot of fuckery happening with the BTs. The BTs are gonna be the friends we made along the way, or some like corny shit like that. I know Kojima can't help himself. There's gonna be something really like funny and wacky with the BTs, and I honestly can't wait. Besides the BTs, the other core section of the game is the package delivering. So I think they're going to try and do something interesting with the package delivering. Maybe one of the packages you're taking with you has a bomb in it. You know, you've been sabotaged, and instead of delivering supplies to like an innocent settlement, you're delivering a bomb. And if there's something like that, I kind of suspect that the game won't be too explicit about it. They will just like drop heavy hints. Or maybe it's a section where you have like a dozen packages and they tell you actually one of these might be compromised, so it's up to you to figure out like which one it is, and of course you can't open it because it might explode on you or something like that. So like I really think that there's a lot of possibility for some sort of like pattern breaking with the packages. We know some about the respawn mechanic in the game where instead of just simply dying, you're kind of taken to some sort of purgatory world where you're able to like collect some of your almost like a corpse run, almost like a sort of a corpse run. You're able to collect your items and respawn. So like there could be a lot of pattern breaking with that, where like at a certain point, kind of like the torture section in Metal Gear Solid 1, they can take away your ability to do the purgatory section and you'll get like a real deal game over if you die. I think that stuff is pretty interesting when they try stuff like that. Okay, that is the gist of it. It only took me over 30 minutes to do it, but that is what I think Death Stranding is going to be. And I think it's going to be kind of great. I made about a billion assumptions about the game, and most of them, if not all of them, could be wrong. And like I said before, I think, you know, that's okay. I'm excited to see what the game is, regardless of whether or not I'm right. This isn't a situation where I just really stubborn and I think I'm right. This is just my opinion. This is just where like my head is going. I'm really interested either way. I like Kojima games not because of the things they did, but because the things they did at the time of their release were very interesting and kind of unexpected. So I hope that makes sense to you. It's not that like It's not that I want him to do the exact same thing he's done before, and if he doesn't do that, then I'm gonna dislike this game. It's more that like I'm gonna be slightly disappointed in the game if he doesn't do something different, something that I didn't expect. So in that sense, I'm hoping that I'm wrong, because if I somehow guessed everything the game is gonna be gameplay wise and scenario wise, then I'm gonna be disappointed in that. I don't think that's the case. There has never been a Kojima game released that I played it and I knew exactly what it was going to be. You know, you always had expectations, and he deliberately plays with those expectations. But when I go through the game, I'm always surprised. Every single one, like literally every single game he's released. And that finally brings my video to an end. Whoa, wait a second. Hold the phone. 3 years later, Japanese trailer from Hideo Kojima. That's my Kojima rap. I hope you liked it. This trailer has like 15 more seconds of footage, and it's pretty relevant to some of the stuff I talked before, so I'm gonna run down through it pretty quick. So first things first is this freeze frame right here. Kojima has kind of confirmed on his Twitter and stuff that the way the packages have health, or the way you can tell that they have health, is these do not disturb stickers, do not tamper stickers on the actual packages. And the more they get damaged, the more the color changes until they just like snap, and suddenly the package is effectively like dead or damaged as far as like the gameplay purposes are. And this is just kind of like the first time we kind of see that in action, at least so clearly, like the way it just glows along where the stickers are. That it's pretty cool to see that, and obviously that happened right after Normaritas took a big bump from the monster. The rest of this boss fight shows him kind of running along. You kind of see a little bit of him jumping and hopping. I'd be curious to know if that is like automatic, like running and hopping over rough terrain, or if you're somehow doing like a jump press to like help him do that. And then finally we come across this freeze room right here. This heads-up display for the aiming reticle is far more detailed than the one we saw previously in like the Hades world. There's kind of a lot to look at here, and a lot of it is honestly pretty confusing. First of all, switching ammo type, that seems pretty straightforward. I assume that you could have very effective weapons towards the BT, like some sort of weird sci-fi bullets, and that are like really rare and hard to come by, and then just regular bullets meant to take out like the fleshy dudes, or the separatists. And then there's the level 2 handgun that kind of confirms that there's going to be like a progression system or an upgrade system for the weapons that may even tie in directly into like the resource management that I was talking about, or the metagame. You might get those from like building up your resources and building up your safe houses. But the really confusing bit of this UI is that 002, and then the red bar, and it says 820 out of 1,000 milliliters. I assume that's what ML stands for. That is really bonkers, and the only thing I can think of that might be like the womb fluid inside the bridge baby tank. Like you could use special abilities or certain things, maybe even slow down time or something, because you're hooked up to the baby, and when you do that, you use up the actual womb fluid. And if you use it all up, then the baby can die. But he has like he has another reserve, because after the 820 runs out, that 002 will, I assume, will go down to 001, and then you just refill the baby with womb fluid, and then you could have at it with the boss. And that's just my freaking best guess. I really don't know what that is. I looked up milliliters or 1,000 milliliters, and that's roughly like 1 quart, and that's maybe how big that tank is. That tank always seems like a little bit bigger to me, but it could be just 1 quart. I don't know. It's definitely really cool to look at. It's definitely kind of what I wanted. I wanted something that was different and weird, and I didn't like a lot of the stuff I've looked at. As far as game footage is concerned with this game, I look at it and I say, okay, I get it. That can be that. I get it. This kind of works. But this is one of the things that I look at and I'm like, what the fuck? I guess I'll find out November 8th. And like looking at it a little bit more, I guess that could be the health, just because it's like it has a heart insignia on it. but the health was always represented, or at least we thought was always going to be represented by the handcuffs, because in the trailers they have showed people getting hurt and then the blue handcuffs turning from blue to yellow to red, and that was kind of fitting into like the minimal aesthetic, the minimal UI stuff. And also I kind of was just thinking there's going to be a lot of like screen shake and stuff to tell you you're getting hurt. But looking at it, I guess it could be health. You probably want your health near your ammo, but you also don't want that to be the only way you can see your health. If it's that's pretty small on the screen. I just was kind of assuming that use health as a more like ubiquitous aesthetic thing, like it is in a lot of modern games, like it was in MGSV. You know, like your screen gets all bloody and weird when you started getting hurt. And if it is the health, then it's kind of interesting how you have health packets. Like Norman Reedus will essentially have two health bars, if that's what I'm reading correctly. If it's that 002 are the amount of meters he has, then it's almost like a Metroid game where you get like health tanks and you get a bunch of health tanks. That's just, again, another guess, but I don't think it's the health, at least not exclusively. It might be tying into the health though. Who knows? Alright, I gotta wrap this bad boy up some way, somehow. So I'm just gonna kind of do some quick rapid shots, miscellaneous points. I'm not really gonna make a list for these because I just want to get through them quick enough, and I'm gonna make a dedicated section. Online stuff. They've talked about asynchronous online stuff. I really think it's just going to be a lot of stuff similar to Dark Souls, where you could see bloodstains. I think this game's version of bloodstains are going to be the strands you see in the background. I think that stuff is not just aesthetic and like world building. I think it's gameplay oriented, where like if you see a lot of strands across the horizon, you're gonna be like, oh wait, this is gonna be a dangerous area. There's probably like a bandit camp here, or there's gonna be a lot of beach things. I think that's what that stuff is. I didn't talk much about the motorcycle you see Norman Reedus ride around in. They had shown that motorcycle before, but this is the first time they showed gameplay involved with it. I don't have much opinion about it besides it looks like it might be fun, and I don't think there's gonna be much other vehicles in the game. I think that's probably just it. Maybe a couple more. We'll see. I noticed now that I already talked about a potential like cure menu, kind of like Metal Gear Solid 3. They show some stuff like within cutscene, Norman Reedus being all messed up and him like ripping off his fucked up toe and shit like that. I'm not sure. I talked about survival elements. They might include a survival menu, kind of like Metal Gear Solid 3, where you could cure yourself. I'm not so sure about that. I think survival elements are going to focus on resources and like sustaining your body. But he's done it before, so it wouldn't be surprising. And that has to be it. I keep stalling. I need to wrap this video up. For the wrap up, thank you for watching. If you actually sat through these 40 plus minutes, I'm probably not going to do another gameplay analysis like this, mainly because I don't want to theorize anymore about the gameplay at this point. I'm spent and I just gonna wait for the game to come out. I do kind of want to make more videos though, more Death Stranding videos. I don't want to make like a story analysis, but I would like to make a theme analysis. I would like to theorize where Kojima's head is at, so please like and subscribe and comment on the video if you're at all interested in hearing my headspace, or where I think Kojima's headspace is at. Besides that, please, if you think I'm crazy or if you like what I'm saying, comment on the video and tell me to do more, because I probably won't do much more if people don't comment or like or subscribe. Thanks.